everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week I am going to be embarking on a brand new historical project because the Victorian Festival is coming up in just about 1 month's time in Port Townsend. If you don't know about the Victorian Festival, basically the seaside town of Port Townsend in Washington on the peninsula hosts a Victorian Festival every end of April, and it has like some lectures and dances and teas and all sorts of other stuff, but it's a beautiful little seaside town. I'll link information on the Victorian Festival down below in the description if you want to check that out. Let me know if you're coming, by the way, because then we can say hi at some point during the weekend. But in any case, this year there is a new event that my friend Emily, aka the Sucky Seamstress, is hosting kind of to go along with the festival, but not actually part of the festival. She's doing it on the Friday, and that is an 1890s ball. So I need an 1890s ball gown. So that's what we are working on here. However, I really had already had on my plans this dress right here. Now this is at the Cincinnati Art Museum. They have it labeled as a 1905 to I think '07 dress. It's not. It's 1890s. They also don't respond to any forms of communication whatsoever. I have at this point emailed them, called them, sent them an Instagram DM, and sent them a message on Facebook, all in an attempt to get potentially more pictures from this dress. They have not responded to a single method of communication. So we are going off of this not very high-res image of how to recreate this dress. But again, I'm also going to an 1890s ball. So as part of this, I am going to be making either 2 separate bodices entirely, if I have enough fabric, or a bodice that can be converted from day to evening. So we're going to see, as I start working on this project, just how much fabric I have and which option I am going to take. I would prefer to do 2 fully separate bodices because an 1890s evening bodice probably wouldn't have had this sort of white under like actual bodice-y part. It probably would have been all of the same material with accents out of a different color. But again, I don't know if I have enough fabric because when I purchased this fabric from the Fabric District in LA, I purchased it with the intention of just making the day extant version of this dress. But this is my fabric right here. Obviously, I'm going just a little bit more purple. This is a silk, either shantung or slightly low slub du peony. I think it's probably more of a shantung, but I got this from Memo Fabrics in the Fabric District last year for only $10 a yard because Memo Fabrics is amazing. And they're my favorite like hidden gem in the Fabric District, but now you all know about them too, so definitely pay them a visit if you go. And yeah, I'm very excited to use all of this. I do have a bunch, but I don't remember how much I got. I don't remember if I got extra. So we are going to see as we start this project. This week, I am going to be starting with the skirt specifically, and then we'll see how far we get. Now, 1890 skirts actually had a fair amount of support kind of built into the skirt. They were, of course, worn over petticoats, over hip padding, etc. But 1890 skirts, especially one made out of silk, that would definitely be lined. So my plan is to line it with cotton organdy. Hopefully I have enough. I think I do, but we'll see. And also 1890 skirts tend to have a fairly deep hem facing that was usually structured in itself. So that could be with like a horsehair canvas. I've done that before. You can also just use like modern type horsehair braid. If you get like a wide one, you can do that, but basically it would provide its own structure down there. Now this one is slightly different because I do have a ruffle on my skirt, so we don't need the skirt to really like fully stand out A-line on its own. The ruffle will help to add a little bit of that volume, but at the same time it's also going to hinder it in that it's going to weigh down the base fabric of the skirt. So I was looking at some potential patterns for this, and I was looking specifically in the new Patterns of Fashion 2, which is so cool. I love that it's in color. I love that there's like more in here too. I've had the old one for ages, but I got this new one last year when I was in the UK. And there's a couple of different 1890s era skirt patterns that tended to be the standard. So you can see ones that are like this, where you have a really large kind of almost like 90-degree angle that would take up the back of the skirt. And of course, there are 2 of these cut. So you get a really, really wide swing in the back, and then your other panels are much more A-line like this. You can also find skirts of the mid-1890s that are a bit more subtle. So we have this one right here where all of the pieces are kind of the same shape and they all just kind of swing out a little bit to the back. To be honest, I'm leaning more towards this strictly because this type tends to be a real big waste of fabric. And also I am going to be applying a ruffle to this. So honestly, I don't want that much volume in the back because then I have to have that much more ruffle to attach to that much volume. So I am leaning more towards this. This is an 1895 day dress. And we're gonna cut skirt panels kind of like this. However, the front, if we look at this right here, we can see that it's kind of interestingly pleated and that the tops of the pleats actually appear to be sewn closed to each other. So I am going to be using this detail, and then the rest of the skirt is going to be just kind of those A-line panels. So I'm going to get to sizing this up, cutting this all out, and I will come back to you when I show you more details about how this skirt is going together. But all these pieces are going to get cut out in both the silk and the organdy and flat lined together. So I was just comparing this pattern and what it would actually size up to without even sizing up to my size, mind you, but just scaling this up as in 1/8 inch equals 1 inch. And it would actually be 106 inches around just half of the skirt. So 212 inches around plus then sizing it up to my size. This pattern over here, this is Period Costume for Stage and Screen. Absolutely love this book. Highly recommend you get it if you can find a copy. It is out of print. But this one I have clearly used in the past. I don't remember what for, to be honest. But I've already sized it up, and the skirt hem on this one wound up at, I think it was 80.75 inches total, plus seam allowance. And I just feel like, considering it is going to be hidden by a ruffle, I think I want to start more with this as opposed to with this. This has one full extra panel that I just don't think that I need for this base skirt. So I'm going to start over here, changing the front to be what I need with the pleats, and go with these pattern shapes. And I think that will give me a better base without wasting fabric. Skirt pieces are cut out and looking lovely, but I did make a little mistake because the side front piece and the side back piece are basically the same, except that the side back piece was meant to be cut 2 inches longer than the front piece. Yes, meant to be cut, because I forgot that when I was actually cutting it. So it's the same length as the side front piece. So hopefully that won't be an issue. I mean, regardless, it's going to be covered by the ruffle anyway, so it's not a big deal, but yeah, that was definitely a mistake there. Either way, I wound up kind of creating my own pattern based on those patterns, but also just making it fit onto the fabric kind of in the most economical way as possible. So the front and the center back were cut like next to each other. And then basically I had 2 lengths that had to cut the side fronts and the side backs out of it. And this is what was left over after that. So hopefully I can get, you know, some smaller pieces or something out of there. But yeah, this is basically the pattern that I came up with, except tweaked a little bit because my fabric wasn't wide enough to get a mid width to be 26 inches, which was my goal. The whole width, I think, was 27 inches. So yeah, not quite wide enough. The skirt pieces are all pinned to their flat lining. You can see some of the piecing that I had to do here. There's a little strip on the side of the front. The front is also a slightly softer organdy than the rest of the skirt. And then the back pieces actually have a horizontal line of piecing going through them, but they're going to be pretty tightly gathered. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. I went back and forth on whether I should use the stiffer for the front or not because of how tightly the back's going to be gathered. But in the end, I decided that the softer should still be fine for the front, and that would probably give a more uniform look to the pieces that the ruffle is going to be based on. So yeah, next thing is that I'm going to serge around the outsides of all of these and put them together. I am going to be putting pockets in here as well. They're going to go between the 2 side pieces here, and then the opening is going to be in the center back between the 2 center back pieces. So that is the next step, but that's what we look like right now. And yeah, my floor is a mess. So as I'm putting this together, one of the things that I've been having to do is figure out the pleating on the very center front section. So that's what you're seeing here. Right now it's all pinned in place, but actually a lot of this is going to just be loose. So it is going to be stitched down this top part right here, probably to about where my finger is. It's going to be somehow, I'm not sure yet how, the pleats are going to be stitched down to here. And the side pleats, I think, are going to wind up being stitched down all the way. However, the ruffle section will wind up going under that. So I have to wait until that's done before figuring out how to stitch that down. And I'm not sure if this is all going to have to be stitched down by hand or what. But anyway, those pleats are now done. Let me show you what that kind of looks like on the dress form. So that is what it looks like on the form. The sections over here, I've already attached the side front sections. These are going to be gathered. So all of the rest of the sections will just be gathered, and you can see my little half pocket bag that it's already attached. Now I'm going to attach the side backs and the back section to all of this, but yeah, that is what the front currently looks like. So for these front pleats that are sewn down, I actually went and just made a pleat, a release pleat like you would on any standard skirt, kind of going from the inside and sewing it by machine. And I did scale it up for what it's supposed to be on the actual fashion plate, but I feel like this looks really long, to the point where it's not going to be flattering. So I have a feeling that I might be shortening that because it goes until right here. And granted, the bottom part is still pinned down. You can see that there. And obviously I am too tall for this dress form right now because I'm pretty sure she's sinking. I swear I set her at my waist measurement. That's not my waist measurement. But anyway, she's getting shorter and this just seems like it is way too long. So I might change that. I do have the side backs attached now as well. We've got our pockets right in there. So next is to attach the center back pieces and gather up the waist and set it on a waistband. As you can see, the skirt is now together on the waistband. This is definitely going down way too far low. It just looks bad. I think it needs to come up to, honestly, about here. So I'm going to seam rip significant portion of that. It's still obviously too long for the dress form. This is Lion squeaking over here. It is not hemmed yet, but yeah, that just looks weird. So the next thing to do besides release some of that is to try it on with shoes and hem it. I'm sure it doesn't look like much, but I have actually released it up to here now. It was, I think, sewn down to there, so fairly significant difference. I feel like it doesn't look that much different, but I think a lot of that is because it is not hemmed, it's dragging on the ground. Hi, Dora, Lion's still squeaking. And hopefully once it is hemmed and has some structure in the hem, that will help. And then of course, once we have the ruffle on the other sections, hopefully that will help even more. My one thing that I'm wondering about is honestly, if I put two dents of gathers up here is kind of what I'm thinking, and maybe I should have put it more to the back. I mean, if we look at the extant one, there are definitely gathers there over the kind of front hips, but I don't know, right now the skirt shape is just not looking like what I want it to, where it should be kind of slimish in the front with most of it to the back. Hopefully that's not the pattern that I chose, but if it is, there's nothing that I can do about that. So all I can really hope to do is, with the hem and the ruffle and everything, hope that that fixes things. Hem is all pinned in place here. I think that the front is doing this weird kick out thing. I did actually press the pleats that are down in front, press the hem back the other direction, but I think because of the pleats, it's doing this weird kick out thing that I don't like and I don't know how to fix, but hopefully more pressing, maybe some tacks can help that stay in place because it's annoying as is. But the rest of the skirt actually does look a lot better shape-wise, so I don't even think I need to put any horsehair in this hem, which is great. I can just turn it up as is and then fold over and do a regular hem. So that is lovely. I don't mind the gathering around the hips as much anymore either. I don't like that the corset is pushing the pleat part out, but I think that is literally just the corset. So yeah, maybe I should wear a different corset with this. This is actually my 1870s corset. I don't have an 1890s one, but maybe I should try the 19aughts, which kind of curves and then curves back in because it's longer. So maybe that's better. But yeah, that's the shape of the skirt right there. So that's all great. I can hand sew the hem now. Lion would like to let you know that The skirt hem is finished. I also did the hooks and eyes at the waist, so the base of the skirt is now done, and that means it is time to do the ruffle. Oh, Dora would apparently like to let you know the same thing because, you know, if I start talking, they both have to come into the room. But yeah, I'm much happier with the shape now. I think that it's doing quite well, and actually, not that you can see it because, you know, there's cat there, but I had freshly pressed the bottom hem there so that the creases all go the right way, and I think it's hanging a lot better now. So yeah, happy with that. And the hem is a good length so it won't get stepped on for dancing. So now it is time for the ruffle. This is what the hem and the inside of the skirt looks like, by the way. So with the front sections where we have those tucks or those pleats that are over the side of the seam, I actually did continue that down and stitch that in place on the inside. The rest of it is basically just flat, but every so often I do have to make a tiny little tuck just because this part right here is actually more fabric than this fabric right here underneath because, you know, it flares out, the skirt flares out. So it's just folded twice and then done with little whip stitches by hand. Some of those whip stitches I think did go through the outer fabric. You can see a couple I think that have gone through, and then some of them I was just sewing them into the organdy. So it varies. I wasn't being super careful other than the fact of I only wanted to pick up like 1 or 2 threads of the outer fabric at any one time. But I have found that if you do it just to the organdy, then sometimes it can wind up hanging oddly if like the organdy or whatever fabric you're using for flat lining or lining, if it like stretches out and the outer doesn't. So I do prefer to actually go through every so often and pick up a stitch that includes the outer fabric. It's just my personal preference. But yeah, and then as you can see, there's also like the serged edges here on the seams on the inside, and that is just the organdy down there. So when it falls with nice amount of body. It is actually Sunday night. Come on, you knew this was coming. So yeah, unfortunately I've run out of time this week to be able to do the ruffle, so that is going to have to go into next week's video. So next week we're going to be starting with the ruffle, and then we are going to be moving on to bodices. I am probably going to do the evening bodice first is my thought, just because I know I need to wear that one to the ball, whereas the day bodice, like I would like to wear it to Port Townsend, but if I don't finish it in time, I could always wear it later, like to costume college or something like that. So yeah, evening bodice next week, so get excited for that. But yeah, that's all I have for you today. I am going to go pet Dora, who is off screen right here, but let's be honest, I know you all want her to be on screen, so I'll hold her. And yeah, hopefully you have enjoyed this little skirt making video, the beginning of my 1890s project. If you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and sometimes additional content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean and Dan. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!